I am hoping that all will go well today. Looking at it on my phone, it looks good to me over there, but I'm just being modest. Anyway, today is it's a little dark, and if you notice, I don't have my normal set. Let me explain. Because I needed to plug directly into the modem because live streaming all over the world, like we're doing, takes a lot of power, apparently, bandwidth, I think it's called. And so instead of letting it happen digitally, I am now plugged directly in, but we're going to get that set back up so I can be back down in my set. I want to start by saying, yes, we are living stream thanks to E360 TV, Globex TV. And I want to shout out to my good friend Joshua T. Berglund, who is the host of Gratitude Unfiltered, which precedes this show, Bathrobe Moments. So if you get up an hour before now, you'll be able to catch his great show as well. We're streaming live, like I said, across Facebook, YouTube, Roku, Android, Apple TV, Periscope, and like I said, E360 TV Live and Globex Television. I want to also thank this week's sponsor, Personal Victory Counseling, where Dr. Brian Rybczynski and his team are helping people become triumphant over life's challenges, one problem at a time. You can reach them by phone at area 630-375-7416 or simply hit them on the web at personalvictorycounseling.com. So thank you so much for that. Today, I'm really excited. As you know, I've been featuring, and we're going to get Miss Charmaine back eventually. Going to get with her later this morning to reschedule her. And but I have yet another of the great authors that are in this book right here, Spiritual Fitness Survivor. We're 29 award-winning authors. Are in this book. I happen to be one. Good morning, Robert Brooker. And today's featured author is Christina Vega. She is chapter number uno, the first chapter in the book. She kicks it all off. And wow, what a compelling story. I just love this woman. Her chapter is entitled Love Shouldn't Hurt. And she also has a nonprofit of the same name, Love Shouldn't Hurt, that she founded with two friends of hers. And she's a single mother, has a beautiful daughter. She was in a relationship for 6 years that gave her all she needed as far as a reason to do what she's doing, helping other women today that have found themselves somehow within the world of domestic violence. So she is, you want to see what she looks like? Let me show you. There is Miss, look at her. Okay. Now, I was just telling Christine when we were in the green room, preparing to come on, I was like, you have so many different looks. Like this chick up here, oh, wait a minute. This chick up here, it's backwards. I don't think I'd want to cross her. I really don't think I'd want to cross her. And then when I bring her in here in just a moment, you're going to see she kind of looks like a lawyer or a secretary or a teacher, you know. But I think what it is, you know, when people have gone through something, I mean, I'm looking at a Lifetime movie thing up here. Like, remember Jennifer Lopez when she had that, remember that when she got sick of that guy and she started learning how to box and all that. So we're going to talk about it today because I'm kind of like joking a little bit about it. Mandy Kika, good morning to you. But it's not a joking matter. And it's not just women. Now, there are men too who are trapped inside of domestic violent situations. Anybody that should know that there are options. No one should feel like there's no place to go when you're inside of that nightmare. That's the only way I can put it, because I know I've never been in a relationship where there was any type of violence at all, and I can't imagine raising my hand. I raised my voice just once to my husband, and I wanted to jump off a bridge. I couldn't. But not everybody has control of their anger. We're going to talk about those things today and some of the warning signs and how we can help, because today it's not just about the victim. Some of you may know people that have the problem, the violence bug, if you will. And, you know, maybe you have a young son or young daughter who could be on the road to becoming a violent person. I don't know. We're going to find out. So let me get her in here, Miss Christina Vega. And let's just start talking. And here you are. Good morning.
Good morning.
I got to turn your volume up because there you go. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show. I'm waiting over here to see you pop up on the phone. You know there's a delay.
I see.
Now I'm gonna move this way because I don't want to get in your way. There you are. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna stay over here because everything's like backwards. It's like rubbing your head and patting your stomach at the same time. So Christina, this book, we're both in it. Let me ask you first of all, when you were considering with your two friends now, two young ladies, what are their names that you started the organization with?
Zulma Robles and Jacqueline Rodriguez.
Okay, so when you girls were thinking about starting this nonprofit, tell us how you found the name and what your mission statement is, and then tell us what you're doing today. Let's talk. Let's do that first, and then
Okay.
we're gonna go back and roll your story out.
Okay. So
Okay.
I guess there's a background story with everything. So besides the fact that the three of us are three survivors of domestic abuse, um, it really came together in a very weird way. We unfortunately almost now 2 summers ago, a friend was killed by her husband.
Oh.
During that time, it kind of enabled me to kind of feel like I needed to do something. Being within the culture that I am, being Hispanic, being a minority, within our homes, you're taught whatever happens in your home stays in your home. And unfortunately, because of that, the abuse that I went through, no one knew of. I lived it alone. When she passed away, a conversation that was had actually on the steps right after that event took place the next day, we were talking, and a friend of mine had, mentioned that had we known during that time, we could have been able to help you. And it kind of lit up just a light bulb. It kind of just woke me up to the fact that I stayed silent for a long time. Unfortunately, the person who was lost was going through the same types of abuse. She stayed silent. And I kind of felt like, you know what, we're Hispanic, we're told to keep this in. We need to do something about it. We need to be that advocate who kind of speaks for those who don't want to speak. So one night, just out of the blue, I just had an idea and I sent out an email to Jacqueline, to Zuma, to our videographer, to our photographer, and a few other people, our makeup artists. And I threw it out there and I told them, there's no budget. I want to put together a film. I want us to tell our stories, real life stories, because we're all very known within the community. And I think that us doing this film will kind of shed light on a topic that not many people speak of. So that's basically what it was to start. It was just a small film. Um,
Wow.
Instantly, they all agreed. We're there, we're in, and I told them, listen, I have no budget. I have no money to pay you. This is just something that I want to do. And immediately the photographer was like, I'm in. I don't need to be paid. I love what you're doing. People need to speak about this. So he took it on. We set a date. We got together and we put together a 55-minute documentary. After the documentary was put together, we had our first film viewing, so that people could kind of see what it was. And the outpouring of support was ridiculous. We had about 300 and something people there, and it took off from that point. After folks saw the film, I had people inboxing me like, you need to do something, we'll help you put in the application. You need to put a nonprofit together. This is something that's going to move mountains. And I still doubted myself. I still felt like, okay, it's just a film, who's really going to catch on to this and want to do it?
Hmm.
And the support just started pouring in. I mean, after we put up the Facebook business page for it, we had folks inboxing us with their stories. I mean, immediately, this happened to me, that happened to me. Folks in the community you would never think, council people, lawyers, different people who have been going through this, and you would have no idea. And it kind of just was like, there's definitely a need. Like, we need to get out there. And since that point, we have just been rocking. I mean, I went through the paperwork. We started to apply for nonprofit status. We started showing up on different TV shows, on radio shows, people asking us to come out to schools and talk to students. And it kind of just flew from there. So now we've been in existence over a year and a half. We've helped about 90 to 100 women and men, surprisingly, leave
Uh-huh.
domestic violence relationships. We've helped them find shelters, safe havens. We've shown our film in 5 different states. We've been at various schools within the city of Philadelphia, kind of talking to just adolescents and even teenagers, kind of just starting very young to teach them about self-worth,
Hmm. Hmm.
self-respect, and kind of valuing ourselves, because I feel like it's something that we should start really young, because even young kids now, it begins with bullying, girls allow the boys to hit them and things like that.
Exactly. And I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to ask you, I remember back in the day, when I was a boy, if a kid, if another one of my little pals, say he liked a little girl, and he didn't know how, the best thing to get her attention was to run up and, like, pull her hair,
Right.
push her, hit her in the back of the head or something,
Mhm.
and then run.
Right.
you know, and it starts there, and I just, it's like this topic is, to me, it's like a phantom.
It
It's
is.
an anomaly
It is.
because it's nothing new. I mean, we've all grown up watching the Lifetime movies, the
Right.
movie of the week, and this
Right.
and the other, but you don't think that. What are the okay? So what are the odds if they say, like, if I were to just take 10 random women and line them up, how many of those women most likely have been a victim of some type of domestic violence?
So they say 2 out of every 10 people is living through it.
So two. So that means that if I were to go into my contact list, or if pick 10 women off my cul-de-sac,
Mhm.
that the odds are that two of them are being abused.
Correct.
Now, you don't see, everyone thinks that, it's the woman who is always, covering up a black eye, wearing dark shades,
Correct.
putting a hat down over her head,
Right.
wearing long sleeves, and scurrying in and out of the house like she's, ducking and dodging.
Right.
That's not necessarily the look. Women are wearing makeup and covering up things, and a lot of victims don't even have to do anything, because, right or wrong, the assailants know how to do what they do without leaving marks too,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Yeah,
So
that was my life.
that so
You're
that
explaining my life.
okay, good. So now that's what I'd love for you to get into. For one thing, and those of you who are watching today, listen, because I'm very ignorant when it comes to the warning signs, and I'm ignorant as to when is the right time to speak up and say something, because nowadays we just don't want to get involved,
Right.
or you try to jump to someone's rescue and you can be the one getting beat up, like, leave him. I've seen that,
Right.
where they show somebody comes to a woman's aid as she's getting beaten in the parking lot, and then she starts beating up the person
Right.
who's stopping the guy.
Right. Exactly.
So with all of this stuff, Christina, what does it, you tell us about your experience, and how did you not know that you were being abused, and when you did realize it, why did it continue?
So I'll say this, as we spoke about in the green room, the first year was our honeymoon period. I was with this man for 6 years.
Okay.
And the first year was our honeymoon period. No red flags. He was amazing. We laughed. We binge watched movies. We went to the gym together every day. We joked. He went to work. I went to work. The first year, the first time he hit me, I can remember it all so clear. The first time he hit me was after I had made him dinner that evening. He was supposed to go to work. He worked nights, so it was kind of his lunch break at 9 o'clock at night. So he ate dinner. He cooked. I overheard a conversation on the phone of him saying he was going to go see someone. I just responded, "You have to go back to work. You're only on lunch break." And he broke the plate over my face. That was the first time. So it was I think there's abuse. It was definite from the start. The first day he hit me, it was immediate. It was intense. And as crazy as it sounds, like you say, people just live regular lives. I was a school social worker. So I went to work every day telling girls to be confident, continue to do what it is that you have to do, find yourself, respect your worth. But then I was at home with a man who was abusing me every day. I will say that from the day that he hit me the first time, it was like his opening act, like, all right, time to show who I am. He beat me every other day after that.
Every other day?
Every other day. If I said something he didn't like, if I looked at him the wrong way, if I went somewhere he didn't want me to go, if I talked a certain way on the phone, it was constant. It was constant.
Okay, now in the movies, they always show this. They always show when the guy does it, you know, he seconds later, oh baby, I'm sorry, I didn't, and then they start crying and this and the other. I don't know what came over me. Did you experience any of that, or did he just didn't give a damn?
There was never any remorse. No remorse. It was, I did it, it's done. He walked out, came back, and it was like we act like nothing ever happened. There was never any remorse for what it is that he did. Um, he did it every day. And like you said, I went to work every day, just the way that I look now. Makeup on, hair done, dressed up, did my job, and no one was any the wiser. Like you stated, I wore long sleeve shirts. I stayed away from my family as much as I could. So I only saw them when I needed to. Family events, deaths, things of that nature. Otherwise, it was just phone calls. I never would let them see me because I had big bruises and different things. I will say that my boss at the time was very, very keen to what was going on. He never spoke directly about knowing, but he did witness bruises on me whenever I bent over or certain things. And he was the person who constantly was like, are you okay? Do you need anything from me? And I was always like, no. To know me is to know that I'm goofy. I'm laughing all the time. I'm a jokester. I'm funny. So even with my students, I'm a comedian. So that's the image I continue to portray. I went home and I was totally a different person. I cried every day. I cried to God all the time. Like, why are you not giving me the strength to leave this man? Why am I staying here? But I will attest to the fact that I was in my 20s. I was very immature. And he knew exactly what to say, as my best friend would always tell me. He knew exactly what to say to keep me there. There were constant threats to my family. He would kill my family. You know, he had a gun in the home, so he constantly would leave it out, you know, as a fear tactic. You know, I'll hurt your family. I'll kill your family. He knew my self-esteem sucked. He knew I didn't like what I looked like. So it was constantly, you know, you're fat. No one's going to get with you. You know, you're lucky that I'm with you. Be happy I'm here. Play your part, play your role. So, you know, it was a lot of emotional abuse as well. And I stayed. And, you know, even till this day, there are people within my own family and circle who think to themselves, why did she deal with it? You know, you were smart, you were educated. Why were you there? And there's still no easy way for me to explain that. Unless you walk through that phase and you realize what it is a person is going through, you'll never understand the fear that's within you. You'll never understand, you know, the emotions that are behind it. I could have walked away 1,000 times, and I did try several times, but the fear factor was always there. My family and I were close, so it was like, what if he tries to go after my father? What if he tries to go after my sister's husbands, you know? So I was always terrified that he was going to hurt someone, so I stayed. I stayed far too long, but I stayed.
So, did you not feel some sense of obligation to warn the family members that he used to threaten you with, or it just wasn't worth letting the cat out of the bag?
Well, I knew my father. My father is a huge Hispanic man, and I knew that my father, when it came to all of us, especially situations of that nature,
Sure.
it would have been do or die for my dad. So I was terrified that if I told my father would be the type of person that would say, okay, well, I'll go to jail to make sure that you're safe. And that was always in the back of my mind, like, how can I involve them? I
Yeah.
could, you know, switch up everyone's entire life because of this. I'll live with it on my own. I'll deal with it on my own. I don't want to involve anyone. Did they think something? My sister did. My oldest sister constantly was reaching out to friends and different people who were close to me to say, something's up with her. She doesn't come around. Do you know? I didn't know until later on after I left and as time went on that she constantly questioned them and wondered, like, is she okay? What's going on with her? But as well, on the side of her head, it was okay. She's 22 years old. She graduated from college. She has her own apartment. She's doing her thing. So it was also that type of thing because my oldest sister was more like a mother always. She still is. So it was like, you know, is she going through something or is she just living her life type of thing? So no one ever asked. And I think that a lot of people assumed but never wanted to ask because one, they probably felt like, and that's what some have told me, you were still going to stay with him anyway, regardless of what we said. Or two, if we're wrong, we're going to deeply offend you. So people kind of just watched from a distance. The only person who knew the entire thing was my daughter's godfather because he rented the apartment to me. He was the landlord and he lived above me. So he heard whenever he would have
Mm.
heard him, and he tried so many times. I feel so horrible for him. He tried so many times to help me. But, you know, I honestly think that at moments he might have been afraid as well too. Like he could come up here and hurt me. He could do something to me. But he did try. He talked to me all the time, like, you're worth more than this. You know, why are you dealing with him? He's not worth it. Let's call the cops. Let's get a restraining order. But again, I was always afraid that it would escalate. So I never did.
So what? So 6 years of this, and does it escalate? And here's where I want to go with this now, because a lot of people think that this sort of thing starts with the physical. But my husband Brian is a psychotherapist, and he tells me that in many cases, the grooming process, which is that year you had, the honeymoon phase, which is also synonymous as a grooming process, because they're preparing, they're setting the stage, they're knowing who to do it around, who they know all the taking things away from you,
Right.
that splitting up relationships, that somebody that might be able to talk you out of staying, they know all this stuff. So what about, like, did you see signs like throwing something against a wall, or slamming doors, or before the actual hitting began? Was there just anything that?
When he would get mad, he would get extremely mad. If that makes sense. His anger was to another level. So he never hit me during that first year. But when he was angry and we argued, it was to some other level that I would say, like, why are you that angry? Like, just slamming a door till it broke, and kind of like just throwing his stuff in the sink and breaking glasses and things like that. And it was always never touching me, but why are you so angry to that extent?
Yeah.
He was very, very, in that nature, he was very violent all the time.
So Christine, when you before he hit you the first time, and let's say you two had some type of disagreement, or you're talking politics or religion or whatever, and you're just you can agree to disagree, this sort of thing. After that, did you feel like your voice, being able to speak your mind, that completely change, as far as what I mean?
You mean after the abuse began?
After that first time when he hit you,
Oh,
did
definitely.
it? So now all of a sudden you're like an entirely different person.
I was walking on eggshells with everything that I said because I was always fearful. If I say something he didn't like, was he going to hit me?
So did your personality start changing around your friends at work, and did you, I mean, I can not imagine how that could not happen. How could you not start changing? Because almost like,
So it did and it didn't, if that makes sense.
okay,
So in one retrospect, like I said, I was a school social worker. The kids loved me. I was always joking with them and goofy. So that persona still had to remain because I had to, when kids were in crisis or they had an issue in school or if they're homes, I still had to do home visits. So that personality continued to stay the same. In one retrospect, I still had to be Miss Vega. I still had to be the bubbly person so that it didn't change. But when the bell rang and the kids were done for the day, I was more withdrawn. I kind of just did my notes instead of my office, didn't say much to people. When I was around my friends, I was still goofy and laughing and funny. But from them, I pick up that I was different. There was something about me that wasn't the same.
okay.
And I think that for myself, I thought I was being myself. I was still being the Chrissy that I always am to everyone. But from them, what I gathered after the fact was you weren't yourself. You were different to us. Something was off about you. But again, they've told me, and in my own mind, I've assumed that they always felt like if we ask, we may offend, or if we do know the truth, she's still going to stay anyway. So, but I did. So in one retrospect, at home, I was totally different. I didn't even want to speak because I was always terrified if I did, it was going to end up in an argument and end up physical.
What was the worst thing that ever happened? I
The,
mean, did you get stitches? Did he break anything? Did you have hospital visits?
I
Did it
did the
get that
hospital. I
bad?
did hospital visits a lot of lonely ones.
So you had hospital visits.
I did.
And
I
so
did.
they're professionals. Did they identify that this is domestic?
Mhm. Often they always wanted to call police. I never wanted to file a report. Even when police showed up, I never wanted it on record, which would have been horrible for me because if he ever would have tried to kill me or any of the above, I wouldn't have had any paper trail. But they did. I went to the hospital often. He hurt my arm. He dislocated my jaw at one point.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I thought he broke my nose once, but he didn't. But I thought that he did. There was so many. Oh my God, I had stitches before in my head. These were all things that I went through alone. And a lot of times that I went to the hospitals, they would try to call the police and things like that. But I never ever wanted to file any reports. I never put anything on paper till the end.
Till
Towards the
the end.
end in my leaving process, that's when all of that came about.
So you share a daughter with the abuser, and at what point of the relationship did she come into it?
So, as crazy as it seems, we were together for 6 years and I never got pregnant. I got pregnant after we were apart. I left him. I tried twice to leave him. The first time that I left him, I slept in my car for 3 weeks. And I was away. I didn't know what to do. And then after that, I felt like, okay, I have to go back. I have nowhere to go. And not because I didn't have family, because I did, but because, again, I didn't want to involve them. So I ended up back with him at a different apartment. Now it was his apartment. The first
So
apartment,
you ended up back with him, what, out of necessity?
yes.
Okay.
I had nowhere to go. So I
Okay.
ended up back with him. It was still the same abuse. I think that was about a year and a half we lived in that apartment.
But
Um,
okay, wait. Let me just ask, because I got to. So, because you're an educated, you're a college educated woman. You have a degree. You're a social worker. You're 6 years into this relationship. You weren't able to squirrel away money to plan a fight or flight, a getaway, or what? No contingency. Was that because he made every penny accountable? You're like, where's the money, or why? How did that happen?
So that's what we go through now with the women that we help. A lot of them stay for economics. They feel like they can't afford to get a better job. They don't have the education, so they feel like they can't get anything. I did have the education. Economically, I couldn't do it on my own because when I lived with him, I did everything. I paid all the bills. I paid the car note, the car insurance, the groceries. He did nothing financially. He did not have anything. And the money that I had saved, it was like, I need this. I need you to buy me that. I need you to buy me this. So I didn't have anything saved. Nothing, nothing. So I had my paychecks every 2 weeks, but I had to pay for my car. I had to pay for my car insurance. I had to pay, for anything that came about. So I had nothing. I had nothing saved. All my money went into him.
How interesting that after 6 years of this, you get away and then you decide to have a child
Well,
with
that
him.
was in year 4 that I got away.
Oh, year four. Okay.
Year 4 I
Okay.
got away, and I was away for about a month living in my car, and then I went back. And then I was with him for 2 more years. And in those 2 years, I left finally after two for good, I thought. But he still would call. He still would reach out. He still was playing the sweet guy card now. So I leave. I'm finally gone. And it was, I'm going to do better. I want to be with you. I was young and naive. And I was hesitant. My daughter, unfortunately, came from a one night stand, honestly, with him. I mean, I was at a baby shower prior. He kept calling and calling and calling and calling. I went to visit him. It happened. And after that, I was like, no, even after that evening, I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep running back to you. You're switching up my life. I can't. I want to move on, focus away. And then after I finally left and I was determined, I moved back home with my grandmother and my mother.
Hmm.
I said, I can't anymore. I'm going to go back to my family. I'm going to make this right. 3 weeks after, I found that I was pregnant. And I was like, wow, 6 years, nothing. And now I'm gone. I finally walked away and now I'm having his kid.
Now you're having his kid. Now you're attached with him, whether you like it or not, for at least 18 more years.
Right.
So, Christina, let's talk about this. The women you work with in service and help. Do you there's so much. This is I mean, there really is. There's so much. Do you What is that thing like that you just described where you got away but you couldn't get away? So you really aren't away, but you think you are. Um, Lots of women will go to the police, call the police while it's happening, and then never go to court.
Right.
I remember being in county jails back in the heat of my addiction and stuff back in the days, and there were always, sometimes there were dormitories of nothing but domestic violence
Mm-hmm.
guys, and they would 9 out of 10 of them wouldn't even be worried because they were like, you know, on the phone with them, with
Yep.
the victim,
Yep.
and they wouldn't be allowed sometimes to visit because there may be restraining orders or whatever, or the pending charges, but they wouldn't show up,
Right.
and they'd get out, and then you have people that do have restraining orders, don't come within so many feet or whatever, and they still do it, and it happens again. What do you tell the people you work with about how is this um, affecting our system
Right.
of about, because I'm gonna tell you something. I watched a girl once. I actually watched a girl, the girlfriend of a friend of mine. They were arguing. She got in the car, drove around the corner, choked herself,
Oh, wow.
and came to leave marks, and then came back and sat in front of the house on the phone, screaming and crying, and ripped her clothes and stuff. And all of a sudden, the police came, and then she got out of the car and was saying, "Look what he choked me!" This, that. And they took him away. He went to prison.
Oh, wow.
He actually went to prison. So what I'm getting at is where where does one problem end and the next one begin? Because I think that for women that abuse, or anyone who abuses the system, as far as calling for safety and then not following through to
Right.
get that, what is all that? What's going on here?
I think in the moment, like any situation, even when you're involved in a regular relationship or husband and wife, and you're in the moment and you're having an argument, in that moment people say so much because there's so much adrenaline. So in that moment it's like, I'm gonna call the cops, or I'm gonna leave you, I'm gonna walk out. And then it takes a little bit of time for them to kind of be like, okay, it's not that deep, it's not that serious, let's not. So I think in the moment you're filled with so much pressure and adrenaline is pumping, and you're angry and you're crying and you feel like, I have to do this, I need to do this right now. They go, like, I'll speak for my own self. The last time he hit me, which was the last time ever, he hit me in front of my daughter. She was 3 years old. We weren't together anymore. I had seen him. I was at a festival throughout the day. I had my daughter with me. Someone who knew him called him and told him that they saw me. So he called me on the phone and said he wanted to see his daughter that day. I told him that it was in the summer. It was July. It was hot. She was very cranky. She was only 3. She was crying the whole day. It's too hot. He was at a basketball court. I said, I'm not taking her over there. It's hot. She's already cranky. See her at another time. He continued to call. I want to see her today. I want to see her today. I'm like, no, I'm hot. It's been a long day. She's hot. She's been in the sun all day. I want to take her home. I ended up staying at a friend's house that evening because she needed a babysitter for her daughter. She was like family. So I said, I'll come over. I'll watch her. Alina can sleep. I'll bathe her. Alina's my daughter. So he had called me the entire time, from me leaving the festival to her home, over and over again, and was getting more aggressive. I want to see her. I'm going to hurt you if you don't let me see her. And at that point, we had already been apart 3 years. And I'm like, I don't care. To me, the abuse had already stopped because we hadn't been together. So I got to her house. He continued to call. I didn't want to deal with the nonsense, so I turned my phone off.
Oh,
He ended up seeing her on her way into her nighttime job. He asked her if she knew where I was, and she said, yeah, she's at my house. She's babysitting my daughter. He drove there. Now, I was none the wiser because my phone was off. When he got there, her daughter was 6 and knew him. So when she saw him banging on the door and she looked out the window, she opened the door to him. He immediately, without saying a word, charged in right towards me with our daughter standing there and knocked me out cold. So I was passed out in front of my daughter. When I woke up, he had roofed my cell phone so that I couldn't make any phone calls. He was gone. My 3-year-old was on the floor crying. The 6-year-old was on the floor crying. I was by myself, did not know what to do. I knocked on the neighbor's door. She gave me a phone. We called the police. The police came, and this is actually my story. When the police came, my 3-year-old daughter was the one who told the police, Daddy hit my mommy. Daddy took mommy's phone and that was her words, he throwed it away. That was the day that he hit me last and never hit me again. And it was only because of that, because my daughter was my saving grace. To hear my 3-year-old say that she was aware and she knew what was going on was like, yeah, this is never happening again. So that day, that was my adrenaline. Like, we're going tonight. My girlfriend came to get her daughter, and I'm like, we're going today. I am putting a protection order on. I'm taking him to court. He is never going to put his hands on me again. And I stuck to my guns. And that's the thing, that sometimes with adrenaline, we don't stick to our guns because we're in the moment. We're angry. We're like, I'm going to do it. Then right, he's sweet. I'm not going to hurt you anymore. We don't got to go through this. We don't have to go to court, because that's what he did to me.
Right.
He called me after the fact and was like, we don't got to do this, Christina. We don't have to go to court. We don't have to go through the drama. Just I'll never touch you again. And I was like, no, we're going to go to court. We're going to go to court. We're going to deal with this. And it was like, no, and that's what happened. Women fall into that. they fall into the words of, oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, I promise you. So they give up, which is
Mhm.
sadly the situation now, unfortunately. And I don't want to talk about his current wife or anything that they go
Sure.
through, but that, that's what they go through, lots of, I'm going to report you, I'm going to, and then they don't show up. So, it's a shame because I have someone currently who I'm helping, who she tells me all the time when I tell her, put it on paper. Please, I do not want you to be one of those women who doesn't put it on paper and something detrimental happens. It could be life threatening. And you never put it on paper. There's no, backstory about what you've dealt with. And she's like, I've gone to the police. I've put it on paper. And when I get there, they've said, I don't see any bruises. I don't see, like, they question her, which is another sad thing about our society. I sat on a roundtable discussion with one of the senators in Pennsylvania, and that was one of his questions, like, what is it that you feel we can do better at as society? And that was one of the things that I said, law enforcement, they need to be a little bit, they need a better bedside manner, as I say. When women go in there and they've dealt with domestic abuse, sometimes that is their response. Well, I don't see a bruise on you. And unfortunately, it's because of those people, like you stated, who say, let me choke myself, let me hit myself so that it looks like he did it, because they're trying to hurt the person. So, excuse me. So then that's what you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't really happen. So then that discourages them from making their report. Okay, I'm leaving. They don't care, type of thing. So I think that too is something that society needs to get better with. But again, it comes from the things that you say. There's women out there who do false allegations. They make reports because they're angry at the man, or they're just, I just want to get back at them. And that unfortunately hurts the people who are going through it at the time and do need the help.
Yes. Yeah. And Christina, a lot of us are aware that our cultures,
Mm-hmm.
the histrionics of our cultures, and the way we were raised about what you let out, this
Right.
stays in the house and this and the other, has a lot to do with it. But let's talk about the women that you deal with, and the children of these women. Um, how early do you, in your line of work, how early do you think we should start talking to kids about what is okay and what isn't, as far as behavior that should, you know that can only go
Right.
south?
Right.
Because it could be, it does, I don't believe it has to be the physical thing yet. There's usually
Right.
warning signs,
Right.
verbal,
Right.
emotional abuse and things like that.
Right.
um so when kids are dating, what are you seeing today as far as reports on domestic violence in the dating scene? How early is it rearing and showing? Because a lot of this is generational, correct?
Right. 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 Mm-hmm.
These kids, the girls see their mothers getting beaten, think it's
Correct.
okay. The
Correct.
boys see the fathers beating the mothers, and they think that's what we do to women.
Right. So I think when I first started this mission, it was more of, let's help women, let's help men. And when I say women and men, older folks, that's what I mean. So people in their 30s and up is what I perceived as who would be my audience, who would be the people that we would be servicing. I learned a very, very big lesson from my daughter. So my daughter's 12 years old now. She'll be 13 this year. And my daughter sat at the location we were at while we were filming. So my daughter had never heard about any of the abuse before, never, until that day. And I kind of was concerned and kind of apprehensive. Should I let her hear? Should I not let her hear? But in one retrospect, I felt like, yes, it was something that maybe some people might think is too early for her to hear. But in another retrospect, I wanted her to know that, one, it's not okay. And two, you can, as we say in Spanish, sobrevivir. We can go past it. We can survive it. And this is who we still can be. We can't allow those people to put those negative mentality, in our mind, and believe that we can't be something, because we can. So my daughter saw us film it. So of course it was really difficult for her. There were moments in between where a friend of mine that was in the room had to take her out because she cried and she was emotional just to hear it, because it was hard to hear, especially some of the things he did to me while I was pregnant. Some of the nasty things that he said. So it was difficult for her. But I learned through her, when we left that day as we're driving home, that even at her young age, kids need to hear it. They need to hear, and it doesn't have to be, oh, well, make sure nobody beats you up, make sure nobody hits you. But they do need to hear about self-worth and self-respect. And you can start that at any age. So what we have been doing, I fortunately work for a charter school. and we have several of them within our organization. So I've been able to go out and speak to not just our high school students, but middle school students, kids that are younger. We've gone out to community centers and spoke to kids who are as young as 5 and 6 years old. And we don't focus on domestic violence per se because of the age group. We focus more on self-worth and self-respect, what you can and cannot allow. Do not allow someone to pull your hair, to poke you, to call you fat. Don't call people names you do not want to be called, because we have to remind ourselves about what it is and how bad we hurt and what we feel like. So we've talked to kids as young as 5 and 6 years old, and we've told them the importance of not allowing anybody, because you know what? Honestly, when someone's abusing you, it's bullying. Even as
Right.
I'm being bullied by this person who's abusing me. So we
Right.
that's the kind of way that we kind of state it to the kids. It's like bullying, you know, don't allow anyone to hit you. Don't allow anyone to talk bad to you or call you stupid or call you dumb. Because in today's society, our kids, 10, 11 years old, that's how they talk to each other. You're stupid. You're dumb. Oh, you're fat. You know, and they say it like it's normal. And I tell my daughter constantly, because she's guilty of that too. She's a kid. She's 12. And I tell her constantly when I hear her in her room, you're stupid. And I'll yell at her, Alina, how many times did I tell you to stop talking to people that way? Don't say stupid. Don't say, and when she'll come home and she'll say, Mom, this person said this to me. This person said that to me. I'm like, would you want them to say that to you? It hurts, right? So don't say it to them. Don't talk back to them. Don't mistreat them in any way that you wouldn't want to be. So as young as 5, 6 years old, we've begun. And I think it's important because there are kids who are living in households where their parents are abusive to one another, and this is what they're watching. So I have discussions with my daughter constantly. She's 12.
Yeah.
And you know, we had a conversation in the car the other day that for a moment there, I was like, should I be offended? We're talking and she's like, Mom. And I'll tell you this much, she's a tough cookie. You think I look like a tough cookie? She's a tough cookie. And sometimes I say, like, I have to be worried about the men she dates and what she might do to them, because she is just so, like, rough. And she told me in the car the other day, she's like, oh, a man's never going to hit me. And I was like, should I be offended? Are you saying something about me? And she's like, no, you know, I think you're strong and, you know, you've been through a lot, Mom, but nobody's ever going to put their hands on me because I'm not going to allow it. I'm not going to tolerate that. And people laugh when they hear that. And I'm like, you know, I laugh too, but inside of me, I feel like a sense of pride too, because I feel like I'm teaching her really young to stand up for herself, because she's a lot stronger than I was. I have always had low self-esteem.
Right.
No matter what, growing up, I've always had it, you know, through 20s, 30s, still I have issues with myself. And my daughter is so opposite of me.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. Let's before we, because I want to touch on this before we get out of here today. That's a good spot for this segue. We are at 8:47, 8:48, so we got about 6-7 more minutes. And before we leave, let's talk briefly, if we could, about those who have gotten away. And yes, you don't have to worry about the fractured wrist or broken rib healing, the cracked lip, or the stitches or that sort of thing, those outward wounds. Correct. But what about those wounds that we take from those domestic situations that we cannot see? What would you suggest? What do you do? What do you see that is working? Where should people go? What should they look for to make sure that they have really completely left the building?
Definitely.
Because I believe if you don't,
it's your
next one, you may be inviting it back in and not even aware of it. So, you know, I know that's a lot right there, but I think you get what I'm trying to. Right. So what do you say?
So what we've done with that, because definitely I put up a post the other day on my page and about 20 people shared it. And it was saying just that physical abuse is something you can see, but emotional abuse you carry for life. And, you know, it is something that if you don't seek out the help, you will take into your next relationship. You will make your next relationship toxic, because even if that person is not abusive, you carry those scars with you and you walk into that relationship expecting the worst out of it. So you're not giving 100% of yourself, because in the back of your mind, not only do you feel like this could happen again, but you also feel a sense of unworthy. You know, I'm not somebody who's worth love. So if he does anything to me, it's fine. At least he's here type of mentality. So I say to a lot of people, and it took me years, and now I'm a crisis counselor, and it took me years to get to a place where my own friends have said, you need to seek help. You need to get counseling, because it's still living in your mind. You still see that. And I'm in a relationship now, and even him and I have had conversations where he's told me, you still have to release that damage. Like, you still are damaged, because you still have parts of you that feel that. And I tell people all the time on my posts, I started this mission, I do this, I'm a crisis counselor, but it doesn't make me unhuman. I still feel things from my past. I still feel that emotion. And what I tell a lot of people, and I've only just started therapy in the past few years, but I tell people all the time, all of us have health insurance. On the back of your health insurance card, you can call and find therapists that are in your area and at least work through those issues, because you need to be able to find yourself again. You need to be able to find your own self-love, because it sounds so cliche and so many people say it, you have to love yourself first or no one will love you. But the honest fact is that it's true. If you don't find any self-worth in you, who will? You're
Okay.
going to the next relationship feeling like he beat me and there's a reason why he beat me. Something about me deserved that. Something about that, something about my personality or something that I did caused that. So I feel like if women go through it, they need to definitely seek out help. And I do that all the time. I send women listings all the time. When people come to me and they're like, I left, I don't know what to do now. I don't know how to start over. I have a woman now that I just found a job for. So she lost her job in home health, and I have contacts within home health. I found her a job. She's looking for an apartment. So the first step was to find her a job so she can afford it on her own, because that was her fear. So now she has the job. So now we're looking for a place for her to live. We're looking for an apartment for her and her son. And she's like, I feel like I'm going to wake up still terrified that he's there and worry about it and think about it. And I told her, I said, well, I know a lot of people within the area who are therapists who are taking new patients, what health insurance. That's what I do. I help them look into their health insurances. I'll make calls for them to see who's in the area. I've even offered to take them. Some women have said, well, I don't know how I'm going to get there. Okay, I'll drive you there. Make sure that you go, because I feel like the next step to healing once you leave is getting yourself back, getting who you are and what you feel you respect back. Because a lot of women walk away from those situations just totally broken, just totally feeling like he took everything out of me. I don't know what to do now. They spend the whole time telling them you're not worthy. You're always going to be second best. You're lucky that I'm here with you. You're lucky that I have you. And that has to be washed away from your mind, because you have to get your self-worth back. You have to know that, no,
Yeah.
I'm worth better than that. You're not going to brainwash me. You're not going to toy on my emotions. You're going to do everything you're doing on your own. You're not doing that in my brain anymore. So
Do you believe it's important, if you have been the male or the female in an abusive situation, and there are children present, and you get away, how important is it to make sure that the kids then go and get some type of
therapy as well.
therapy?
Yeah.
Um, you know,
I seek out a lot of therapists who also do family functional therapy, who will sit together with the family, because I think that it's important as a unit for them to sit and discuss it. I sit with my daughter all the time and we talk about different things. My daughter currently doesn't go through therapy, but she was for a while last year, because she went through a lot of bullying
yeah,
the past few years in school, and it was affecting her. And we talk a lot about that. We talk about things that the therapist would say to her and things of that nature, and things that I still learn on my own through my own counseling and what I go through my own therapist. We talk about a lot of that together so that she can kind of understand, okay, what mommy went through, we're going to grow on together. Because she was only 3 years old. She doesn't
right.
even remember what happened that day. But it was kind of like a light bulb to her when she saw us through the film. It was like, oh my gosh, I do remember something.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, and one other thing,
Mhm.
because you know how at the top of the hour when we first started, and even in the green room when you and I were chatting privately, I asked you about your ex, and why didn't the people around you that knew he was capable, because some of them had prior knowledge from his prior relationships, and they never brought it to you
Right.
until afterwards. So what can we do for those of us who have someone who we know has already proven that they are capable of abusing? What can we do? What should we do? When is it okay to speak up if they have a new partner, or they bring someone else? Do you feel we have a responsibility? If I have a cousin or an uncle or a brother who is, I know he is an abuser, and and you come home with him, do I have an obligation to warn you, or do I mind my own business?
Well, I see. So I'll say this. I never blamed anyone for not telling me. I feel like everyone at that time kind of just was unsure and was like, should we tell her? Should we not tell her? And again, because of us, being in this culture of what stays home, stays
What
home,
happens?
figures it
Sure.
out. But now, having lived through it, having dealt with the people that I deal with, and kind of seeing what I've saw, even after my friend was killed, I kind of feel like we need to be more proactive. If you think something's going on, ask. Don't
Yeah.
wonder anymore. Don't say, I think she's going through it. She might not listen to me, all of the above. So what? Be pushy. What I've told people at a lot of, the talks that I've had is, you're probably going to worry about her not listening to. You're probably going to worry that she's going to stay. But at least if the person who's going through the abuse feels like, okay, I don't want to hear what she has to say, in the back of their mind, sooner or later, they're going to think, okay, maybe I can go to Evelyn. Maybe I can go talk to someone because she already has asked me, so she might, be able to help me. Maybe I can go to her house if something happens.
Right.
A lot of times, my biggest thing is I tell them, don't bash the abuser, because we're in the moment right now that they have us kind of in a trance. If you're sitting there and you're constantly like, he's a jerk, he's this and he's that, and you're calling him names, they're not going to want to come to you for help, because in their mind, you already can't stand that person. You hate that person. So they're like, I'm not going to go to them, because if I tell them anything, it'll just be all about the abuse. They won't be able to help me. It'll be too much about, oh, what he's doing to you. He's a jerk. I told you so. They're not going to feel that comfort level. So what I continue to tell people, because I've had people say, listen, I know my sister's going through this. I don't know what to do. I said, love on her. Call her. Let her know, because I stayed away. I didn't see my family for a while. So I say that. Love on her. Call her constantly. I love you. Oh, my God, you're beautiful.
And be there. And be there.
Because in that moments that they need someone, they can think, you know what, I do have someone there. And I always had people there. It wasn't that I didn't, but I was fearful to bring them into that world. But if you feel like you have someone that will be your support system, because all along they've been there, they're making the calls, they're constantly showing themselves and being, it's more helpful because they feel like they have that outlet.
Perfect. Listen, the chapter in the book is entitled Love Shouldn't Hurt. The nonprofit organization's name is Love Shouldn't Hurt. And right there, 3 words that tell us all we need to know. If you are in a relationship, or if someone you love is in a relationship where hurt is a part of it, well, know that something's wrong, and find resources, talk about it, learn about it, share what you know about it, and learn some more.